Hello, and welcome to episode 120 of WrestleRotica, the podcast that combines wrestling with erotica. This week we have one story to share with you. The story is entitled Porn Wrestling Federation Volume 3. It is closing time in a bar, and Becky Lynch wants to continue drinking. The bartender refuses to serve her any more for the evening. That is until Lynch promises that she will do anything to get another drink. Without further ado, let's get to this week's story.
In early 2016, professional wrestling, and to be specific, sports entertainment giant WWE was in a crisis. Bad deals, lawsuits, falling ratings, and questionable booking decisions led to the world giant having to make tough decisions with personal and professional consequences. For a long time, the WWE had been a proudly PG-friendly company. But when they were approached with a very non-PG offer from a very XXX-rated business, they were left with little choice but to accept. The formation of the Porn Wrestling Federation was a joint wrestling and pornographic promotion based initially around the entire roster of WWE divas or female superstars, as they were rebranded as being sold to an established porn website and filmmaker who, working with the WWE, would create a weekly TV show of in-ring action for worldwide, in fitting with the general PG way of the rest of Raw and SmackDown's broadcasts. The PWF would also, however, create pornographic films and scenes starring the divas for sale, download and on-demand streaming through its adult-only website. The WWE would retain all the rights of the match-based programming and would receive part of the profits from both sides of the PWF's productions. As PWF grew in popularity, no guesses as to which side of the business was consistently making far more money than the other, so too did it start to expand with additional talents drawn from NXT and the global independent wrestling scene. The existing roster of WWE female superstars, however, were willing to show their sexual skill on camera, no matter their existing in-ring skills or credibility. While the Divas Revolution failed to shake up the division then, one of the stars it introduced was more than happy to show off her talents that didn't involve any last kicking.
Porn Wrestling Federation presents Irish WWE diva/female WWE superstar Becky Lynch in a last-kicking closing time. The scene begins as we see a handsome and built-looking, short-haired man clad in the stereotypical attire of a bartender with black pants, white shirt, and a bow tie. He's currently cleaning a glass with a towel, but looking to the side, he's shaking his head with disapproval at what he sees. The next shot, we see a sight that's very pleasing for the eye. The stunning Irish sports entertainer of the WWE, the self-proclaimed last kicker known as Becky Lynch. The tan beauty, with long-dyed, bright flaming red hair, is clad in her usual steampunk-styled ring attire of green with black trim shorts, with bronze, crisscross belt design that hugs nicely to her rounded backside, and a corset-like no-sleeve top of black with green across her perky chest. To go along with this are thick black wrestling boots, black arm gauntlets that run from below the elbow to the wrist, and topping the look off with true steampunk goggles that are resting on the top of her head. Lynch smiles to herself as she raises up a glass that's still a fifth full of Guinness, and greedily finishes the drink off with a series of gulps, ending it with a happy sigh. As she puts the glass down with a thud. That hit the fucking spot! She says in her thick Irish accent with a smile. Now, fix me up another, will ye, lad? Are you serious? The bartender says with obvious displeasure. It's 3 minutes before closing time. Besides, you already ordered a couple of those when I said it was closing time. You have had enough. He states, taking the empty glass away. That's a load of shite! Becky says as she shakes her head. I'm in here all the time, and you know I can drink everyone under the fucking bar in this city. Well, not tonight you won't, he says firmly before putting the glass away under the bar. Throwing her arms up into the air in frustration, she shakes her dyed red-haired head again. For fuck's sake! Whose dick do I have to suck to get a drink around here? What? Just as she puts her hands on her hips, looking annoyed, the bartender lets out a chuckle at that comment, drawing a raised eyebrow from Lynch. What's fucking funny? She demands as she looks at him. Well, Was that just a statement, or was that a question? He says with a distinctly flirty tone, taking a moment to look over her athletic and very desirable body. You dirty little fecker! Lynch says, smiling, returning the look and clearly liking what she sees. I always knew you were eyeing me up every time I walked in here. She takes a step back from the bar, watching as he tosses the cloth away and moves around it to stand in front of her. So let me guess, you've got the dick I need to suck in order for me to get me drink? What do you think? He challenges almost as he reaches down, unbuckling his pants and letting them fall to the floor. Her eyes widen with a big smile as she sees a lengthy, thick, and already hardening cock now presented to her. I think I'm gonna enjoy this, just as much as knocking back a round of pints, Becky says rather too eagerly, dropping down to her knees in front of him as he steps out of his pants and kicks them out of shot. Plenty of me nights usually end like this, Becky rather proudly states, as she grips his cock with one hand, delivering a series of swift and nicely formed pumps to make sure his dick is rock hard for her before she leans down, flicking her tongue out against the head of his shaft, delivering a couple more pumps to his rod for good measure, and easily making him moan from it. A brief smirk before she runs that wet tongue now around his fat crown with a slow, almost easy motion before topping it off with a brief kiss to that tip. Usually it's either at their place or mine, but I'm needing that drink, lad, she states before she takes him inside of her mouth. A clear groan heard from him as she places her lips firmly around his rod, keeping the head in as she delivers a long suck so the camera can see those cheeks bulging as she works him over, still pumping on the rest of the length as she does so. With her goggles still resting on the top of her head, the female WWE superstar starts to push her gorgeous face down onto that meaty stick, making herself groan as she fills her mouth up with his bartender's cock, casting a saucy gaze up at the moaning hunk she's blowing as she lifts her head slowly, but smoothly, up until again just his bell end is between her soft lips. With one hand gripping his dick by the base, leaving the other free to keep her long, bright red hair out of the way of her face, she starts to bob her head up and down on that lengthy pull at a nicely steady and far from novice-looking pace. The skill she has with this sex act becomes clear, making them both groan out within moments, and with obvious enjoyment as she lets her mouth glide back and forth. The action made hotter to view, from her noisy slurps onto that meat. Yeah! Fuck! Yeah! Her co-star encourages, casually unbuttoning his shirt, more to keep it away from obstructing the sight being recorded by the camera, as Lynch rocks her head up and down on a stiff prick, moaning as he gets to enjoy that nicely damp and soothing oral hole being moved smoothly along his side. Suck that cock, baby! As the clothing gets dumped aside, she takes the moment to slide a hand seductively up his muscular, made-for-porn midsection, stopping her suck so she can grind her lips around the top of his stool, making him groan as she twists her head from side to side for a couple moments. The stunning Irish woman groans around the big American dick, she's got between her soft lips, as she resumes the task of sucking him off, eagerly bobbing her head back and forth and pushing down further onto that member. Giving another lusty stare up at the stud, she grips his thighs for support as she starts to put more force behind her motion, sinking down deep and stuffing her hungry mouth full with cock. Cock! Gah! She starts to gag, her eyes widening, but still full with desire, as she takes the stick so deep it hits the back of her mouth, but doesn't let that stop her from dishing out this blowjob, as she keeps her head moving over him, fucking her own face now on this fat cock in a very willing and eager fashion. Now the hunk getting blown takes over the task of making sure that dyed red hair stays out of the way, brushing it back when it falls out of place, allowing the former star of Shimmer to focus on sucking his cock, her saliva splattering around and dripping down his length to his crotch and balls as she now repeatedly gags and groans onto his thickness. Even with her eyes watering now from the discomfort, she's not stopping the dirty display of servicing this shaft, making it look like she's more desperate for some dick rather than the drink this oral sex was going to get as a reward. Eventually, though, after a deep gag, she has to relent, pulling up and off of him with a gasp as a thick string of saliva hangs from her lips to the crown of his tool, seen just for a moment before she spits down onto him and uses both hands to rub her saliva all over the cock she's just been choking all over. "Back me!" Becky says with a laugh, catching her breath while she strokes his dick. "Not had a big one of these in a while." Aww. She pauses, biting down on her bottom lip before she looks up at her co-star. "I know I said I'd suck ye off for a drink, but how about a little something extra to pay off me tab?" "What you got in mind?" he asks, smiling as she stands up and turns toward the bar. "You can come stuff that big fucking cock of yours right into me tight hole for a start," Lynch says with a grin, reaching to her wrestling shorts to hook them, slowly sliding them down her shapely tan backside as she reveals a smoothly shaved pussy that already looks a little wet, just from having sucked dick moments ago. She steps out of them, the man behind her sliding them out of the way as she hops up a little, bending a knee onto a bar stool so she can lean over the bar, her ass sticking out invitingly, and she flips her hair back so she can look at the stud approaching her. Oh, fuck yeah! Stick it in there. She moans out a little, just from the feeling of him rubbing his cock head against her holds, but soon has reason to let out a clear cry of sinful delight when he uses a firm thrust to penetrate her tightness to his similar groaning approval. Angling his body to the side to allow the camera to get the perfect clear shot, the side of his big rod moving in and out of her snatch can be seen. Her ass cheeks already jiggling sexily, just from the pumping motion, as he's wasting no time in getting down to proper business here. Oh, fuck! Shite! The smoking hot Irish lass licker moans out, her lusty eyes switching from looking right at the hunk she's now getting pumped from behind by as she feels the thick shaft plowing in and out of her box, to looking right down at that very sight herself while keeping her upper body propped up with arms on the bar top. Yeah! You like that? The hung bartender asks the obviously answerable question, her clear and continuous moans showing not just how good she's feeling to have her snug wet pussy getting stuffed full of cock like this, but showing he's got plenty of sexual experience himself to match up with the sexy sports entertainment beauty he's getting to fuck. Yeah. Take it, baby. He adds between his own groans, using a hand on the top of her ass cheek to keep it spread, not just for his own benefit, for a smooth, unrestricted entry into that damp love tunnel, but to give the recording camera that clear view to watch his thrust as he slides his dick back and forth into that twat again and again. Oh, fuck! Yeah! The still partially closed steampunk-styled stunner groans out as she more than happily takes this fucking, tilting her flamed-haired head back, but still, with her goggles resting in place, to go with the arm gauntlets and her corset-like top still on. And from those moans of joy, being dressed is the least of her concerns right now, with such a long and thick-to-match dick being stuffed into her. Oh, fuck! Fuck me, stud! Stick that! Big fucking dick right up in my tight little twat! Lynch demands even though she's getting just that. The cock of the stud behind her showing no signs of stopping, as he pumps away in and out of her snatch, getting a nice covering of her, forming juices to replace all the saliva that had been coating him from that BJ turned face fucking she'd given moments ago. Her co-star is showing his experience, and not just in sex from the way he's smoothly and firmly pumping that dick almost completely into her pussy each time he thrusts forward, but the angle of his body meaning about an inch or so stays out so the camera filming the skin flick can keep getting that perfect shot of her snatch getting filled up over and over again. He raises his hand up, delivering a sharp spank to her nicely rounded booty, making her groan as she gives another lusty look back with gritted teeth, then nodding that flaming-haired head when he gives her another. And all the while, still thrusting away into her to keep them both moaning out with every pump he sends deep into that wet box. That's it, you fucking... Stuff me fucking full with a big fucking dick! The former Rebecca Knox in the Indies, turned NXT and then WWE diva, is still making her sinful demands from the hunk who hasn't stopped pounding and deeply into her needy and tight snatch. As she takes the machine-like pounding, she makes sure to keep her desirable, semi-clothed figure in the right position, with one leg bent over a bar stool, while she stays leaning over the bar itself and uses a hand to keep brushing her hair out of the way, so the pleasure all over her pretty face can be clearly seen and filmed. Back! Yeah! Yeah, you dirty fecker! Her thick Irish accent seems to make the scene all the more hotter, shamelessly moaning out with every stiff thrust she's taking from behind, as her ass jiggles when his body works in close towards her, before quickly and smoothly sliding back to repeat the motion as she takes his massive American cock repeatedly deep into her wet and snug pussy, like she was made and built to be a porn star, rather than a pro wrestler. Lynch groans as the hunk behind her gives her another thrust before he pulls out of her snatch and steps back, so she can move off the bar and stool to stand. Hope you don't think you're done just with that, lad. No! She says with a smirk, reaching back and removing her top, soon pulling it up and over her head to show off her perky and sexily rounded tits. With the clothing cast aside to just leave her, and steampunk boots, and her goggles on the top of her head, Becky hops up to sit on the edge of the bar, spreading her legs as she leans back, hair hanging down behind, and using both arms to prop herself up on the bar top. It's not long before the bartender comes back in, a hand used to guide his cock back into that wet and tight hole, and once more they are moaning out as he resumes the task of giving her the kind of pumping she and her stunning, tanned body deserve. He grips her thigh, putting the smooth leg over his broad shoulder, and once again standing so his body is at an angle towards her, so she can still thrust his manhood deep into her snatch, while not hiding a moment of his red-hot sex from the camera, getting that close view of his rod plowing in and out of her damp pussy. Ow! Back! Fucking hell! Lynch groans out, mouth hanging open from the pleasure she's getting, as she's willingly selling her body in a way to get what she wants. But right now craving more sexual satisfaction from her snatch getting slammed than getting any drinks, which had been the purpose of her blowing, and now getting fucked by this handsome man, who has his cock stuck deep into her twat. Yes! Back! Keep it fucking coming, stud! She grins before letting out a long moan. Flipping her long dyed, bright red hair back over her shoulder when it falls out of place, letting her gorgeous facial features be seen along with the rest of her stunning frame as she leans back, letting him do all the thrusting to keep both of them groaning out with delight. Indeed, from the way her co-star is using a series of nicely forceful, swift, and smooth pumps to send his shaft right forward into her still tight, but very wet now snatch, it's clear he's got the experience and skill to make him perfect for porn. Oh yeah! And that's to the WWE diva's moaning delight, as it gets her all that thick cock pushing deep into her love tunnel before he quickly pulls back, just to repeat the pumping motion. His muscular body is connecting just enough with her tan frame to make her rock back on the top of the bar she's getting fucked on, making her right tits bounce for an added treat for the filming camera as it moves in for a close-up view of her snatch getting stuffed with all this dick and able to record the sound of the sloppy smack of that shaft pushing into her moist hole over and over again. Ow! Back! Fucking fill me right up, you dirty bastard! She moans out the dirty talk compliment as the former member of Team Bay in NXT and Team PCB in WWE stays leaning back and taking this repeated, stiff pumping into her tightness, gasping as well as groaning out in pleasure as sweat begins to form over her already hot enough looking body to go with the saliva still on her chin and down her neck from the earlier face fucking she delivered when the action of this porno started. Fuck me! Fuck me good! Fuck me hard! She's able to demand between her moans, gazing lustfully at the hunk thrusting his lengthy rod in and out of her pussy, and making it look almost too easy from how swift and smooth the rhythm being used is, as he works his hips towards and then sharply away from between her spread legs, in that wet, but still pleasurably snug hole. Yeah! Take it! The bartender keeps his words short and sweet, letting the action being filmed speak for itself, as he keeps on thrusting away, almost balls deep into her twat. His balls almost touching her skin, but his careful angle means he's just an inch away from being completely stuffed into her, for the benefit of letting the camera get that unrestricted shot needed for the best possible foreign film. Fuck, baby! Love that tight pussy! He groans out, keeping a grip of her leg just to keep himself close to her. As the female WWE superstar, he's pounding is doing a fine job herself of keeping that stunning Irish frame up and her other leg out of the way, ensuring he can pound in quickly and repeatedly with his fat and long American cock. If you fucking like that. Just wait until I'm the one. Giving you the ride of your life. Becky says, with more than a hint in her seductive voice, as the camera moves in to take a long shot of her moaning face, as he stares at her co-star, as the scene then fades out for a brief moment. The porno comes back in just a couple minutes later, with now the lucky and hung bartender laying on his back on the very bar top he's supposed to be serving drinks behind, but now has the stunning Becky Lynch mounted on top of him, as she lowers herself down onto him, reaching between the legs so she can line that cock up and take him back inside her tight, wet pussy. Once he's between her folds, she leans forward with hands on his chest, allowing to start bouncing her shapely backside as she moves her snatch up and down his still rock hard rod, easily making them both moan out with shameless approval. As she already looks set on making her vow about giving a ride to remember come true, and then some. Fuck! Fuck! The woman known as the Irish Lass Kicker is heard moaning out, but the camera is currently recording her dripping snatch as she slides herself up that meaty shaft to just at the halfway mark, before rather forcefully slamming right down. The effort put behind the motion made clear by both the slap of skin meeting tan skin when their bodies connect, and the sexy jiggle made by her ass cheeks each time she makes the downward motion as she fucks herself onto that big dick. Fuck! Fucking love! Taking a big fucking prick right into me! She lustfully and honestly admits as she bounces her sweating and smoking hot body up and down on that thick dick she's stuffing herself full with, as she shows she's not just able to take some top-notch fucking action, she's more than able to dish it out herself to the gurning delight of the hunk she's on top of. Flipping her long, dyed, fiery red hair back, she's able to look back at it and show the filthy desire all over her sweat-covered face. Now as she watches herself riding that now familiar big cock she's already sucked off and been pumped by, and once more is enjoying every single fat inch of when she drops downward and takes him all deep inside her still needy and wet snatch. She's still keeping her body sticking out as she dishes out this ride, letting her butt cheeks shake while the side of her pussy, taking all that cock straight up into herself, can be clearly seen, and her hair bounces widely, in time with the motion of her stunning body. Fuck! Oh me fucking days! She groans out loudly and without any hint of shame at all, each moment of this red-hot action being recorded as the beautiful sports entertainer from Dublin, Ireland, is doing more than just a fine job of handling this lengthy and thick-to-match American cock. with another round of swift and firm bounces to make it appear she's more at home, staring in skin flakes, than she is stepping into a squared circle. Oh, shite! Fucking love that big fucking dick in me! She adds, a flash of saucy grin being seen from her before she turns back around, letting the focus be again on the ongoing action as she continues to swiftly ride this big dick. The smack of her body dropping down against his desirable frame, ringing out like a finely working machine to mix in the air with both of their deep moans of joy from this sexual encounter. Giving credit where it's fully due, her co-star underneath her is showing off his ability to take as well as dish out as he just lays back and lets her take a turn of leading the action. His groans being heard but keeping his body still, not even thrusting his hips, as she does all the work here with the sudden elevator-like movement of working her body up and then sharply down onto his lengthy buck stick. That cock is still rock hard and ready for more. Oh yeah! As he gets taken all the way up into her nicely snug and now very wet snatch, before being slipped out just a few inches before she's racing back down towards his crotch with a slap. But at this point, neither of them are feeling any sort of sting from the connection, just the sinful pleasure of some hot and heavy, dirty action. With a gasp, the former flight attendant, an acting degree graduate, comes to a stop on top of his hunk, keeping his dick stuffed inside her, still needy after all this porno fucking snatch.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
Rather than taking a chance to catch her breath, she's instead grinding her pussy down against his rod, working her hips slowly and seductively back and forth in a rolling motion that easily has them both grinning out to show approval for the sudden, but still sexy change of pace. Bet ya fucking love that, you fucking stud. The sports entertainer says with her thick Irish accent, dripping with lust, letting her hand slide over his defined chest, that's now noticeably glistening from the sweat covering him, now as she works over his large American shaft, with her pussy with another slow and savoring, rather than teasing grind, down against him. How's about we see about paying off that tab of mine altogether? Becky offers with another naughty grin as the camera moves around, getting a shot of her fine body as she stays mounted on him and his dick for a moment, before we get another fading out of the film into the next scene. Once again, it's just minutes later, but now with a completely different camera shot that's overhead of the bar itself, with Becky Lynch now laying on her back on top of it, moaning out as the hunky bartender is pushing his dick back into her snatch, as he stands between her spread legs, holding her by the waist as he starts to go to work on her. Within moments of him breaking out into a stiff and rapid rhythm, she's reaching back to grab her own long, bright red hair from the pleasure she's feeling as her perky tits start bouncing in time with a jolting motion her body is being made to do each time he slams his dick all the way up into her pussy. Fuck! Oh yes! Back! The former Shimmer Women's Athletes competitor, as Rebecca Knox moans out loudly, as she takes a steep pounding at a pace that's the most intense and clearly pleasurable so far during this porn filming. Her head tilted back and eyes closed as groans and gasps escape from her open mouth. No matter if it's a thrust in or out she's taking. Fuck! You fucker! She hisses out, the footage now switching to the normal ground level camera that gets a shot of Lynch's rocking back and forth, sweat-soaked and tan body, as she moves back with every balls deep pump she very willingly takes. Her tits shaking and her hair swaying away, but even with the level of pleasure she's taking, she still remembers to keep it brushed away, out of her face, for the filming cameras. A series of deep grunts and groans can be heard from her more than built-in, several ways co-star, as he keeps a firm grip of her stunning body, so she doesn't jolt back too far from him, allowing that rapid-fire motion of thrust after hard thrust to be slammed straight forward into her soaking, wet twat, which is still staying nicely snug, even after all this intense action they've given each other. He's keeping himself stood up perfectly straight so the camera looking down at them can see his fat rod being slipped quickly in and out of her pussy, and his arms at low angle so the filming being done at their level can also get their clear close-up views of that big shaft hammering way into her love tunnel. Ah! Don't fucking stop! Ah! Ah! The beautiful, but now more than just a little less drunk, WWE Women's Division superstar is still begging for this, even hotter than her fire red, dyed-haired action, loving the way her snatch is getting pounded over and over by a cock so huge that many a normal red-blooded woman would even struggle to handle half the size. Fucking wreck me! Ah! Pound me, fucking dirty snatch! Ah! You fucking honk fucker! She squeals out almost, mouth hanging open, as her head tilts back again, her hand sliding up her tanned body, as she gives her bouncing breasts a deep squeeze, her cries of delight in arching position, giving the impression that she's starting to come all over the cock being slammed into the hilt into her dripping box. Either that or she's doing such a fine job of faking an orgasm that many a porn veteran will be studying this film to take notes of how to do it, and from how smoking hot it is to watch happen, it's of little difference if the sexual high is real or not. Meanwhile, even as sweat drips off his handsome face, the stud playing the role of bartender here keeps on doing a more than just a fantastic performance, keeping his hips thrusting away, back and forth towards that moist hole that's left his cock coated with her pussy juices, as he buries his American cock all the way into her very accommodating Irish twat again and again. Despite how long this intense fucking has been going on, his shaft is all too easily still slamming in until his body is smacking off of hers, and his nutsack slapping against her pussy and ass as she's just hanging off the edge of the bar, both of them moaning out loudly as he enjoys being balls deep in the WWE diva for a few thrusting moments more. It's only a couple pumps more into her though before he has to pull out, gripping his rod and starting to stroke himself off, quickly and impressively for a woman who has been using up so much energy, giving and taking, perhaps the fuck of a lifetime. Lynch is shifting off the bar top and down onto the floor on her knees, licking her lips as she flips her hair back, as her co-star jerks his dick rapidly to reach his release. She reaches up and pulls those signature steampunk goggles of hers down over her eyes, a dirty grin cast up in his direction, as she sits up straight, ready for the money shot to come. The camera is right there to record it, as he lets out a final groan before the first thick blast of spunk shoots across Becky Lynch's face, landing down into her bright red dyed hair and her forehead. The next shot then covering the red lens of her goggles, and more of the upper face to her groaning approval. She stays in place, not flinching for a moment, as he shoots more spunk, now splashing across the left goggle as well as her nose, and again making some land into her sexy hair, as he gives her a load that's perfectly big and creamy for a skin flick like this. She fights to resist licking it up, a hint of tongue seen for a moment as he moves his dick in close as he strokes out the last drops, smearing her cheeks and staining her lips before flicking the last couple out to also hit her lips and chin for a more than generous glazing. Bet ye won't be refusing me a drink in here again, will ye? Becky says with a smirk as she lifts her cum-stained goggles up, further staining her flaming red hair, as she looks up with a satisfied gaze up at the stud, as he moves back out of the shot, letting the camera record a close-up shot of her spunk-covered and even hotter than she already is face. Lynch gives the camera a sexy wink, and makes the rock horn sign with her hands, smirking in a proud and completely shameless way, as she knows she's just been filmed sucking dick, fucking, and taking a face full of cum that's now dripping from off her cheeks, chin, and steampunk goggles. It's on this smoking hot sight that the porn fades out to black, drawing another fine Porn Wrestling Federation production to close. The end. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. If you enjoyed this week's story, please be sure to like, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. Visit us elsewhere online, including Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Tumblr, and as always, our official website, WrestleEroticaPod.com. Thank you and have a good week.